What up, fight fans? Main man, made man here, back at you with another video. Y'all know how I get down. We talking boxing. Julio Cesar Chavez Jr., man, takes another L, man, losing to Andrejiz Fonafara in a one-sided ass whooping. The little snot got his ass beat, ladies and gentlemen, man. Taking the bitch-made route, quitting on the stool, man. This is just contributes to the criticism of Julio Cesar Chavez Jr., the son of the legendary Julio Cesar Chavez Sr. Heads off to Andrejiz Fonafara for coming in and looking beautifully and giving the one-sided ass whooping to the little snot Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. Now, my apologies to Andrejiz Fonafara for honestly not giving him much of a fair shake, I guess, in my pre-fight review of this particular fight, where I was basically got a little upset that, I thought this was a cherry-pick style type fight for Julio Cesar Chavez. This was an opponent within a style that was tailor-made to be in front of him. Looked like one of the Al Heyman cherry picks that we always see, you know what I mean? So that's how I pretty much approached this fight. I wanted to see Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. take on, say, Triple G, or just like most people, I want to see him take on either the Triple Gs or the Carl Froches, the Andre Wards, those who are of a certain caliber, and not keep trying to cherry pick his way to through these opponents. Now, we know Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. been out of the ring for about a year, so he thought this was going to be some sort of tune-up fight, but just came into this fight with a shitty-ass game plan. He was the smaller fighter in this fight, so that proved to be the X factor, I thought, in this particular fight. A lot of people are dogging Chavez Jr. about the lack of heart and quitting on the stool. I will get to that. But I thought, he fought well. If he fought that style of fight against any other 168-pounder or maybe even 160-pound fighter, that would have been a devastating style. This is the typical Chavez Jr. that we know of, walking through shots and then trying to lay bombs and thinking that was going to be the path to victory. But he walked into a fight with a fighter that his punches did not overwhelm them like he did in the past, such as like he did against Andy Lee or tried to do against Sergio Martinez, and it started to work towards the end of the fight, but it was too little too late. So in this particular fight, he tried to overpower the fighter once again. Head movement, defense was shitty. Just got tagged with everything but the kitchen sink. Just eating punches and thinking that he could just walk through punches and land bombs. According to Fonafara in his post-fight interview, he said, hey, Chavez Jr.'s punches wasn't even really hurting him. So, came in just with a shitty game plan. I don't think this is the game plan that Goosen would have provided for Chavez Jr. Just came in lacking fundamentals. The footwork was terrible. This is the Chavez Jr. like I said, we seen against Andy Lee trying to overpower a fighter. Not the Chavez Jr. say from the Brian Vera 2 fight, which he was more agile on his feet, which he used his jab more, which he used his movement more. This particular fight, towards the end of the fight, he was getting walked down easily. He was very, very, you could tell he was tired as fuck, you know what I mean? Just getting hit with everything. The punches started to overwhelm him. Got a dose of his own medicine, if you ask me. The little sport brat got a dose of his own fucking medicine. He got overpowered in this fight. So, the thing is that I wasn't quick to dump on him. Like I said before, I thought he fought a hardcore fight. He tried to stand in pocket with Fonafara. I thought he fought an entertaining fight. So I wasn't dumping on him until the post-fight interview, in which he just gave me a whole different view on this fight, man. He's like, I thought I was winning the fight up until round 7. I would like to rematch Fonafara at 170, as if this fight, which already took place at a catch weight of 172, now he's looking to drain Fonafara more in a rematch. Fonafara is not going to stand for that. I know he's not. And besides, he's looking for a rematch with Adonis Stevenson. But shit, man. Instead of making adjustments mid-fight or making adjustments in your style, Chavez Jr., you rather for the fighter to come down and get drained further so you can try to overpower him at 170 pounds. This is the shit that turns people away from Chavez Jr. and calling him a fucking brat and everything under the sun because, you don't get your weight in 172 pounds, so you want to take him down to 170. Both of these fighters weighed in on the scale at 171 pounds. It's just that Fonafara came in as the longer, heavier fighter in the fight. And he showed such. And he used his game plan to that advantage, man. So shout out to Fonafara once again. Heads off to the Polish fighter. Looked very, very impressive in this fight. He's screaming for a rematch against Adonis Stevenson, man. I would love to see that fight, you know what I mean? Adonis Stevenson already beat Fonafara, so this fight, if the Sergey Kovalev fight doesn't go through for Adonis Stevenson, I think this will be a great fight, especially given that Fonafara is coming off a big win. A lot of fighters, they want to fight Chavez Jr. because he's a popular fighter. Even in this particular loss, it's very entertaining, you know what I mean? So Chavez Jr. is going to be okay because he keeps a story behind him when he fights. Is he going to be disciplined enough? Is he going to take this fight serious? A lot of people see good things that can come from Chavez Jr., but he just doesn't get over that hump. Some say he just doesn't put the work in to get over that hump. Another thing I found interesting about this fight is that Al Heyman, we all know that joined forces with Chavez Jr. right before this fight, and it put Chavez Jr. in a real legal issue with his promoter, Top Rank. So after the fight, we seen Sam Watson, Al Heyman's face to the public, lining up behind Fonafara. You know what I mean? It was funny to see that shit, how he just bogarted everybody out the way and lined up behind Fonafara. But however, when Chavez Jr. gave his post-fight interview, we didn't see Sam Watson or the Watson twins line up behind Chavez Jr. Is that a sign of things to come, ladies and gentlemen? But Chavez Jr. I know he was supposed to perform marvelously against Fonafara. Just quit on the stools. Some people are saying, he took the bitch-made route. Like I said, he took the fucking bitch-made route, quit on the stools. Some say he could have continued on. I thought he could have also. He did survive the ninth round knockdown that he took. He survived the rest to the end of the round. He quit on the stool. So a lot of people would have wanted to possibly seen if he could have came out for that next round. Evidently, Chavez Jr. had no plans of that, man. So just showing the bitch-made route once again. A lot of people still questioning his heart, his determination in the sport of boxing. I think the elite fighters now are going to possibly leave Chavez Jr. I mean, they were talking about a possible fight between him and Carl Froch if him and Ward fight didn't go through. I don't think Froch will be anticipating that fight now, given that Chavez Jr. just took this loss. I don't think Carl Froch will be looking to possibly get the Chavez Jr. fight. We all know Chavez Jr.'s #1 claim to fame is his popularity amongst the Mexican fans. So, Chavez Jr. keeps that facade going, even in his post-fight interviews where he think he won fights and he think he won rounds. He does that to keep his popularity going because right now, that's all he pretty much has going for him, especially losing against Fonafara. Not looking very impressive in against Brian Burr in the first or second fight. So, these were his last 3 fights, and he hasn't looked very impressive in his last 3 fights. So, I don't know what lays ahead for Chavez Jr. I can see him trying to drain more fighters from either 175 or maybe getting a 168 fighter, trying to get him to come up to another weight that he doesn't normally fight at. Whoever fights Chavez Jr. is going to fight at an uncomfortable weight. You can believe that. It's the only way he's looking to win. He's looking to drain fighters, man. He's looking to add weight to fighters, you know what I'm saying? So, even his father from ringside, we remember portions of this fight, they were showing cutscenes of his father, and he was trying to tell Chavez Jr., get the fuck out the way, use your head, go side to side. Chavez Jr. was not using no head movement. The fundamentals just did not look like they were there for Chavez Jr. I know Al Heyman had to be sitting in the back looking at him like, what the fuck is this kid doing, man? Coming in there just getting his ass whooped, standing right in front of Fonafara. I thought the game plan of trying to fight him in the pocket, like I said, was good. I thought the punches he was landing on Fonafara were good. And it would have stretched a lot of other fighters, ladies and gentlemen. But should have known to make an adjustment midway through this fight. He had Goosen in his corner. Goosen is a very good trainer, and he's never trained fighters to sit in there and just take damage and lead in with your face, lead in with your head. Never seen none of his fighters perform that way. So just undisciplined ass Chavez Jr., you know what I mean? So it's going to be interesting to see what lays in the future for Chavez Jr. We were jumping on him about jumping in there with elite fighters. Now people are going to question it. Maybe we don't want to see him in there with the elite fighters now, given that. But then again, I can't say that because, like I said before, even when Chavez Jr. loses, it's still entertaining as fuck to watch, man, because he comes to fight every single fight. Just did not have enough oomph in the tank to do this type, to hurt this fighter right here. But any other fighter would have been hurt. And I keep going to that. But to the next video, it's your main man, Made Man. Like I said, I hope the Stevenson and Fonafara fight does happen. I will be rooting for that fight if it goes down. Fonafara, hats off to him once again. Looked very, very good. Coming from the Polish native coming over the pond, getting the victory done in front of the pro-Mexican crowd. So, awesome thing. So, until the next video, it's your main man, Made Man. And we'll see y'all on the next. Don't forget to subscribe. And don't forget I'm at Twitter. I'm at Made Man 511. Peace out.